morning. I call to order the high-level plenary meeting of the General Assembly to commemorate and promote the International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, and welcome him to the meeting. Members will recall that by its resolution 68/32 of the 5th December 2013, the Assembly declared 26th September as the International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. The day is devoted to furthering this objective, including through enhancing public awareness and education about the threat posed to humanity by nuclear weapons and the necessity for the total elimination in order to mobilize international efforts towards achieving the common goal of a nuclear weapon-free world. As noted in my letter of 15th September 2017 to all permanent representatives and permanent observers, I extended an invitation to representatives of the United Nations system, civil society, mass media, as well as prominent individuals to make contributions at this meeting in keeping with the spirit of General Assembly Resolution 71/71. To accommodate these presentations, this plenary meeting continues to be held in this setting. I will now deliver my statement. Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome you all here. In particular, I want to thank those of you who have traveled to be with us. This clearly demonstrates your commitment to this important issue. Today marks the International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons. I'm glad to see so many delegations represented here at the high level. This is a sign that our vision of a nuclear-free world is as clear as ever. Since the declaration of the International Day in 2013, some things have changed, others have not. It's important to look at both. One major thing that has not changed in the past 4 years is the fact that nuclear weapons are still part of our world. Thousands of nuclear warheads continue to exist. They are being stored across 3 different continents. In fact, more than half of the world's population lives in countries which have nuclear capabilities or are members of nuclear alliances. The effects of nuclear weapons are almost unimaginable. I say almost because, unfortunately, some people have experienced them. We have seen the photographs of the destruction. We have heard the testimonies of survivors. We have been told about the long-term irreparable damage to people and the environment around them. Since the world was first exposed to nuclear weapons, we have developed norms against their testing and proliferation. The objective has been to further the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament. But when nuclear weapons exist, so too does the threat of their use. And this has not changed. It's been around since the United Nations was first established. Some things have, however, changed. Unfortunately, not all for the better. Since the General Assembly adopted the resolution to establish this International Day, the world has witnessed 3 nuclear tests. One nuclear test is one too many. 6 nuclear tests in the 21st century is, frankly, alarming. So too is the reckless rhetoric we are witnessing. It can bring us all to the verge of a cliff which we cannot afford to fall off. We must also acknowledge a recent change of dynamics. For example, last week the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons was open for signature. Not everyone agrees that this was the right step to take, but it demonstrates a determination which is beyond dispute. We must welcome the resolve of countries and leaders to maintaining momentum around this important issue. This brings me back around to something else that hasn't changed. The almost universal wish for a nuclear-free world. As President of the General Assembly, I will call for efforts to ensure that the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty enters into force as soon as possible. I will closely follow the work of the First Committee of the General Assembly. I will support efforts to continue the discussions we saw in the run-up to the adoption of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We must ensure that these discussions address the different views of member states. Our success depends on how inclusive the process is. Many of you have been dedicated to this issue for decades. I look forward to engaging with you over the coming year and learning from your experiences and expertise. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, nuclear weapons are not simply a fact of life. We should not accept them as such. We can live in a nuclear-free world as long as we all believe that it's possible, and as long as we are all willing to work to make it possible. The International Day acts as an annual reminder of the work we have left to do. So I thank you again for joining us today as we recommit to this work. And I will now hand the floor over to the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in recent months, the dangers posed by nuclear weapons have been forcefully driven home, making this event timelier than ever. We know that the horrific humanitarian and environmental consequences of the use of nuclear weapons would transcend national borders. As such, every state has a right to demand the elimination of these uniquely destructive weapons. And this is why, for more than 70 years, nuclear disarmament has been a principled objective for the United Nations, from the very first General Assembly resolution to the recently negotiated Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The only world that is safe from the use of nuclear weapons is a world that is completely free of the nuclear weapons themselves. The goal of such a world is universally held, but of late it had been subject to numerous challenges. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has conducted a series of provocative nuclear and missile tests, heightening tensions and highlighting the dangers of proliferation. I again condemn these acts unequivocally, and I welcome the Security Council's firm action on the situation, as well as its desire for a peaceful, diplomatic and political solution. I acknowledge the significant efforts that nuclear weapon states, especially the Russian Federation and the United States, have made in the past to reduce their arsenals and the role of nuclear weapons in their security. However, expensive modernization campaigns, combined with the absence of planned arsenal reductions beyond the New START Treaty, make it difficult to see how disarmament can make progress. There remain deep fissures between states over how to achieve nuclear disarmament, and the two-decade-long stagnation of the Conference on Disarmament has exacerbated those rifts. It is true that we live in challenging circumstances, but this can be no excuse for walking away from our shared responsibility to seek a more peaceful international society. The Treaty of the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons will strengthen norms against nuclear weapons. In moving beyond the development of norms, we need inclusive dialogue, renewed international cooperation, and above all, practical measures for irreversible, verifiable, and universal nuclear disarmament. There are multiple pathways to a nuclear weapon-free world. The states possessing nuclear weapons have a special responsibility to lead by taking concrete steps, including those agreed at various review conferences of the Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. But a world free of nuclear weapons is a global vision that requires a global response. And the United Nations stands ready to work with all of you to achieve this. Every state has a responsibility to contribute. Thank you very much.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement. The Office of the President of the General Assembly has received a number of requests from the UN system and civil society to participate in this high-level plenary meeting. If there is no objection, time permitting, the high-level meeting will hear statements from the General Assembly observers and representatives of the United Nations system and civil society.